paper, European Portuguese is sort of okay. Spoken Portuguese, however, is very alien. If you have ever felt frustrated trying to understand real Portuguese, you are not alone. And the good news is that understanding naturally spoken Portuguese is possible. My unschoolers improved their listening comprehension right at the start of my program, and so can you. I suspect you have been presented with the pronunciation of individual words, but the reality is we speak in chunks of information. I call that the King of Portuguese. Olá, eu sou Catarina, Portuguese polyglot. At the Language Unschool, I help you find your voice in European Portuguese by listening first. Don't get me wrong, pronouncing one individual word at a time very clearly is important and has its place. Let's take the example of morning in English. Morning. But we often combine that word with other words like tomorrow morning, early in the morning. On paper, yes, we see two words, well, four in the second example, but because they convey one message, we don't even bother to pause in between those words. Tomorrow morning, early in the morning. The exact same thing happens in European Portuguese, and once you know how the king transforms those words to convey one message, you are bound to understand spoken Portuguese. I'll even say this: you will stop, finally, trying to hear words. Instead, you will start hearing sounds that convey messages with meaning. Mind you, this won't happen overnight, but it's precisely why in my program I start by explaining the rules of how we speak and then have my unschoolers listen to 42 quirky stories. You can have a glimpse of what that looks and feels like with my free mini start. Check the link below in the description. And now it's time to look at some examples of kings of Portuguese. Em casa do teu pai. Fine, hooray for me. I can pronounce individual words in Portuguese. But AI would have done that too. If the idea was to know how to pronounce one single word, fine, no problem. But let me ask you, even if you knew the words and their correspondent pronunciation, would you have guessed em casa do teu pai meant at your father's place? Maybe yes, maybe not. More chances to check this coming right up. Here, the combination do teu is particularly obscure. The reason why is because the D and the T are letters pronounced in the same way. The only difference is that there's vibration in your vocal cords with the D but not the T. Try putting your hand over your neck and say d d d d d d d, and then d d d d d d d. You should feel vibration with the D, not the T. Can you feel it? Since they're so close in sound and so often hard to tell apart in so many languages, I can now think of Dutch and Hungarian, but I know there's more, we simply marry the two. Do teu, do teu. That final O isn't even that clear anyway because it comes at the end of the word. Also, do, of in English, is sort of an auxiliary word that doesn't carry the main meaning in this chunk, even though it's important overall. Next example. I'll say it at normal speed first. Desde hoje de manhã. Desde hoje de manhã. Can you figure out what I'm saying? It would be cool to hear from you at the end of the video in the comments as to which ones you managed to get and which ones you had more trouble with. Now let me separate that one sound into four words. Desde, hoje, de, manhã. Both desde and hoje have E's at the end, which in Portuguese will not be pronounced. These are mute E's. Hoje is a word we use a lot, of course, but which people tend to find hard to pick up in speech. And no judgment on my part, we're talking about four letters, of which only two are audible, hoje. De, as in the previous example, is going to marry manhã, and partially because it has that mute E at the end, and partially because it's an auxiliary word. We won't emphasize it at all. Desde hoje de manhã. Example number 3. No outro dia. No outro dia. No outro dia. While no ends with a U sound, outro starts with O. In speech, we simply pack it all into no outro dia. Example number 4. Mas é mesmo assim. Mas é mesmo assim. You get extra points if you get this one because I'm being really lazy here. Basically, I'm saying mas é mesmo assim. That S in between two vowels, even if those are in two different words, will change the S into a Z. Mas é. Mesmo is a special case because we often shorten it to mim, thus skipping the j sound altogether. We do it because no other word in context will sound the same. And then mesmo marries a sim because that final O doesn't do much for us. It's not in the green position. And if you haven't heard me talk about the Queen yet, watch this video next. From mas é mesmo assim, we get mas é mesmo assim. Fascinating, isn't it? Now the next king is my favorite. Buckle up and let's do this. Example number 5. Clac quanto. Clac quanto. Any idea what I'm saying? Okay, this sound translates to claro que quando. Let's start by removing the final O, E and O respectively. They don't do much for us in fast speech. And I'm curious if you heard me say that R in claro. I did say it, but only ever so slightly. Or did I? What I did was to open up the previous vowel, the A, which was enough for comprehension. Cla. The word k, made out of 3 letters, becomes a simple k, which will marry to the previous cla. Clack, clack. Now comes the best part. I talk about the Knight of Portuguese in this video. In essence, the Knight of Portuguese explains where a word starts and begins in spoken Portuguese. Well, in case we have a word ending with the same sound as the start of the following one, there is actually, in speech, no word division. And this is crucial for you to be able to understand word boundaries in European Portuguese. So, from claro que quando, we get clac quanto. Does this make sense now? Example number 6. I still have a long list of good examples for you, but I'll give you one more, which I'm sure will elucidate you in many ways. Il não disse. Il não disse. Here we have ele não me disse. Il is a special case. It's such an important word that gets often mixed up with eu. I talk about the light and the dark L in Portuguese in this video. I'll leave the link in the description as well. Then we get the marriage of não and me. Me is hardly audible because of the final E. The end of this is also swallowed. You can guess why by now, I think, and hope. So we're left with a dis sound. From ele não me disse, we get il não me disse. What this means is, do not expect important words like não to be pronounced super clearly. Il não me disse. Il não me disse. Il não me disse. Once you know, rationally speaking, all these rules and patterns, you can venture off and start consuming native content and understand everything around you in Portuguese, right? Well, maybe you're not quite ready. Maybe soaps, films, cartoons, conversations will still be a big step to take. And that's why I offer you access to my mini start for free as a stepping stone to native content. The link is below. Now, tell me, how many of these 6 examples could you get right away, and which did you struggle with a bit more? Tell me in the comments. Working on your listening skills is what will allow you to have conversations beyond survival Portuguese. And this is important because your voice in European Portuguese matters. Obrigada por verem, obrigada por me ouvirem e até à próxima.